Wow. I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation with my friend, Dr. Randy Ross. Randy's a best-selling author, speaker, trainer, travels all over the country and the world, teaching and leading organizations of how to be remarkable. And I'm so excited for you to hear this great conversation. Here's my friend, Dr. Randy Ross. Welcome to Market Mavericks. I'm Matthew Eford. Join me as I speak with leaders who are redefining industries in every corner of the market. From startups to established businesses, we'll uncover the strategies, challenges, and insights that drive success. Get ready to be inspired by the Mavericks who are shaping the future of business. Welcome, everybody, to Market Mavericks. I'm your host, Matthew Eford, and I have my friend here with me, Dr. Randy Ross. I'm so excited for you to hear from Randy about his books. He's an author of multiple books and is a speaker and is a teacher. So Randy, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about you. You got into writing books several years ago, but talk to us, just kind of give us an overview of where you are in your professional life.
Well, Matthew, thanks for hosting me. First of all, it's great to be with you, and I'm appreciative of the opportunity to share our story. You know, my background is I spent the first 2 decades of my career in the not-for-profit space.
Okay.
Working with entities that were doing great good in the community. And then I was distinctly directed to move into the for-profit market, which was a fun transition. The interesting thing was that transition for me came rather smoothly, but at the same time, it was a great opportunity for me to utilize what I had learned in the not-for-profit space.
Okay.
You think about this.
Yeah, tell me more. Tell me more about that transition.
In the not-for-profit space, obviously, how do you motivate people? Because they're volunteers. Agreed. So you're not rewarding them financially for what they do. So to create a movement of good in organizational life in the not-for-profit space, you have to tap into purpose and passion. You have to make sure that your mission is clearly articulated, that people are engaged emotionally because they're volunteers.
Sure.
Well, it's interesting, but we've also discovered through research, the same thing applies in profit circles.
Sure.
Because if you do your deep dive on the research, people are not primarily motivated by money. They're just not. Now, you have to pay a fair wage in exchange for labor to keep people happy and engaged. But the reality is, if you want that discretionary effort that lies within the margins of life that everybody chooses where that energy is going to go, then you have to tap into a deeper level. You have to tap into purpose and passion and mission, because that's what engages the human heart, because people feel good when they do good. They're not interested in a job just to make more money for shareholders or the company. They want to know that they're a part of changing the world for good. And so I took a lot of those lessons from the nonprofit space, applied them to the profit space, helping them understand how to create a more engaging culture and how to create the team dynamics that inspire people to bring their best to work every day. So now I get a chance to float in corporate circles across the globe and talk to them about all things related to leadership.
Love that. I love that so much. So you spend this career, a full career, really 20 years in the nonprofit space. You make the leap into profit space or for-profit space. Then you write your first book. Talk to us about that. Where did that initial thing come from? Where you know, as a man of faith, I believe, you know, God puts calls in our lives and puts people in our lives to encourage us. Tell us that story of how that book became about.
Well, we had been espousing the principles in the book in our teaching and our speaking for a couple of years. We just realized we needed to codify the message. And so I wrote the book. Had a lot of fun putting it together. It's a parable. It's a leadership parable. The title of the book is Remarkable. It's about doing work unconventionally, not the usual. And I partnered with a friend of mine, a buddy, actually a neighbor. I coached his boys in basketball, and we attended the same church. We lived in the same neighborhood. His name was David Salyers, and David was in the marketing department at Chick-fil-A. Matter of fact, he was the second person hired in the marketing department at Chick-fil-A. And I said, David, I've got this book that I'm writing. I have the message. I know exactly where I want to take the message, but I don't know much about marketing. Would you be interested in helping me polish this book and put it on the market? He goes, absolutely, because I've always wanted to write a book, but I
I love that.
have time to write. So I was smart enough to know what I didn't know, which was marketing, and said, help me with that. And we were fortunate to get Truett Cathy to write the foreword to the book.
Wow.
And the book has been used extensively for internal training at Chick-fil-A. The book is not about Chick-fil-A, but a lot of the principles that we unpack in the book are at the very heart and soul of Chick-fil-A and how to craft a great culture. So that was my first foray into the market as an author. Um, Obviously, we do a lot of speaking, a lot of keynotes across the country and workshops for various groups from small, mom and pop shops around the corner to multinational groups, talking about all things related to leadership.
I love that. So bring it down to a practical level, right? I mean, the author of the book, a huge fan of David Sawyer's. I know him, great guy, and I appreciate you sharing about Truett. I mean, Truett, what an amazing man, a legacy that he's left, and it's so cool that Chick-fil-A is ingraining that into their culture. Um, but a small business owner who hears that, if they haven't read the book, it's a fantastic book. It is one that I highly encourage people to read. But tell us, like, what are maybe first and second step? The small business owner, they've got a team of 10 employees. What is something they need to do to start being in that idea of growing culture, having a clear vision? What advice would you have?
Now, well, we do talk a lot about the kind of culture that you want to create, the foundational principles on that, but also we carry it over into customer service, which obviously for any small entity providing just world-class service to your base is critically important. The question is, how do you do that? How do
Yeah,
you do that, whether you're a small startup of 5 or 10 people and all the way to 10,000 people? How do you maintain that sense of purpose and passion as you grow the organization?
sure.
What I would just remind people of is this: is that Chick-fil-A didn't start in 2000; it started in 1946, and it started in a little place called the Dwarf House. And Truett Cathy was at the grill, and so these principles that we unpack go all the way back to the founder of Chick-fil-A.
Yeah,
And the beauty of this is that we unpack, and a lot of my work in communication has evolved from the field of axiology. And axiology is a strain of philosophy. Actually, it goes all the way back to Plato,
okay,
Socrates, Aristotle. That whole line of creating virtuous cycles of good. But axiology, at its very heart, is a study of values, value constructs, and value creation. But Matthew, here's the fun part for me: is that axiology and theology are kissing cousins.
yeah, oh yeah,
I, I can't go into corporate settings when I speak to Coca-Cola or Panasonic or Colgate Palmolive. I can't unpack theology for them,
sure,
right? But I can unpack principles of axiology. And axiology, very practically applied to business, is powerful.
okay,
I mean, it is vastly impactful. And so, in a fun narrative way, we unpack some of those principles from the field of axiology, which is all about how do you drive the kind of culture, how do you create behavior, right,
yeah,
that aligns with your customer service expectations. But you have to understand that behind the behavior is a belief system that has to be addressed. And foundational to that belief system is someone's values construct.
yeah,
And so it's all about values. How do you build an organization based upon foundational values? What does that look like? Because when we talk about values, there are three different areas of values that we have to contemplate.
okay,
They're ethical values, which is what's right, what's good, what's morally just. There are aesthetic values, what's beautiful, what's harmonious, what works well and creates this beautiful environment that we want to have that inspires people. And then there's also the functional values. What's the process of work? How does this link together? How does it function effectively? And so in all of our books, Remarkable, Relationomics, Fireproof Happiness, and our latest book, Make Life Good, in each one of those books, we talk about those different axiological principles and how
okay.
they.
I love that. So you say we. Is that when you're writing this, are you writing it with a team? Is this other co-authors like David Salyers? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, no, I'm the sole author. David helped me with the first book. We polished the final content together, and we got it out to the market. Um, but when I say we, I'm talking about those individuals that are committed to the same objective. So, for instance,
Gotcha.
friends like Ken Blanchard, you may
Uh-huh.
remember
Oh yeah.
Ken wrote the One Minute Manager. He wrote the foreword to Relationomics, and Horst Schulze, who's one of the
Oh yeah.
most fabulous when it comes to customer service. We quote Horst. He's a friend, and we quote him in the book as well in Relationomics. Um, and then just a variety of people that we work with in corporate entities that have helped to fuel the communication that we're getting out to the market. And now with our latest book, we're working both with uh, for-profit entities and not-for-profit entities, bringing them together to create movements of good. We might call it corporate social responsibility or
Sure.
conscious. So we're blending that together with the message of make life good and providing very practical, tactical applications through a platform where we can connect nonprofits and profit groups so that they can come together to change the world for good.
I love that. I love that. So, was your journey into the for-profit space? Was it as an author, as a speaker, as a trainer, or was it a different business that got you out of the nonprofit space?
Well, it was a transition period because I
Okay.
felt like I get some experience in the for-profit world.
Okay.
So when I left the not-for-profit space, I worked with a couple of very strong organizations that were on Fortune's list of top 100 places to work.
Wow.
And in one, I served in the realm of recruiting. The second group was a group that served in the automobile industry in a national level.
Okay.
I was the people officer for that group. And then after working in those organizations and just seeing the need for someone to address this idea of how to increase engagement, I hung out my own shingle in 2000 into 2007, beginning in 2008, and we launched Remarkable.
Wow.
And ever since then, I've been traveling and speaking for corporate events, doing training for organizations of all sizes and ilk, and just helping people move the needle on getting their people involved in worthwhile activity. Matthew, one of the things that I didn't get a chance to say is that axiology at its heart is really about defining and measuring good.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's about how do you create movements of good in organizational life. So if you think about it, people, if Gallup is correct, less than a third of the American workforce is highly engaged in their work,
Yep.
meaning that they bring passion, enthusiasm, creativity, collaboration to the work experience. They just don't, they wake up saying, I can't believe I have to go to work today,
Yeah.
rather than waking up excited going, oh man, I get to go to work today. And so we wanted to change that. And so our messaging is all about how do you create a movement of good within organizational life that goes beyond making a dollar to making a difference.
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee you, when you make a difference in people's lives, first your team members, but then also those that you serve, you will make a dollar. Because here's what I've learned: that people will gladly pay full price for those things that they deem bring true value to life.
I
So the
love
emphasis
that.
always has to be on what are we delivering to the world that makes life better?
Yeah. And
How,
go
how
ahead.
can
I'm sorry.
good?
I've got a quote from your first book that has impacted me a lot, and it's when you focus on adding value to others, success becomes a byproduct rather than the goal. And it's really this idea of what you're saying. When we hire people, when my organizations, what we do when I kind of the final one of the final onboarding pieces is I sit with them and I tell them, you will work with us for a season. My goal is to elongate that season, to make it as long as we can make that we can work together for the rest of your career if that's where the Lord leads you. But my goal during that season is to make you grow, that you're better when you leave us. That if it's you leave us in retirement, you leave us because you move, or you leave us for a better opportunity. But I've really tried to take this to heart. And what's amazing is I've seen our team grow. I've seen our customer service grow, and I've seen bottom line numbers grow, retention rate grow, referral. I mean, all the things that a business wants to see. But I love this perspective of if we can add value, this idea of that being the goal, that success is the byproduct rather than the goal of that.
And see, you're spot on, because here's the thing that fascinates me and frustrates me with corporate America is that we don't invest enough in those things that are important and impactful for people to grow. And a lot of times, what happens in organizational life, even in small startups, is that we see someone who's a great individual contributor or they're a subject matter expert, and we immediately put them in a role of leadership, but we don't train and we don't equip them to handle the relational side of the business.
Yeah.
Then we set them up for failure because we don't invest what we need to see them grow in the competencies and the skill sets and the emotional intelligence to be productive, because the mindset is we can't afford that. Or they'll say, first thing that gets cut is the training budget, when things are.
Yeah.
But and I've actually heard individuals, leaders say, well, why would we invest so much in training? Because they're going to leave. Well, that's the whole point. You
Yeah.
invest in training and you help those people grow, number one, so they'll have an emotional attachment to the organization that help them grow to prepare better for life. But would you rather train people up and have them serve the organization while they're there, serve the organization well, and then go on to lead a productive life in society? Or would you prefer not to train them, have them do a subpar job, and then have to keep them?
Yeah. There's a great meme that's floated around on LinkedIn for years, and it may actually be from your book. I don't know the origin of it, but it's this idea of a CFO and a CEO talking, and the CEO says we're going to invest in our people, and the CFO says, what if we invest in them and they leave? And the CEO says, what if we don't and they stay? And it's this idea of we've got to invest in our people, and I love that you're doing that. When you're consulting, when you're training, when you're speaking to other business owners, what are some ways that you'd help teach them to what's a take home? What's something that somebody can be inspired from this conversation? They can say, hey, I want to invest better in my team and my staff. I want to start tomorrow. Actually, I want to start today. What is a next step that they could do?
Well, let me answer that in a roundabout way. Let me go back and kind of lay a foundation for that,
Sure.
because I like to say that good organizations know how to grow the business.
Okay.
Great organizations, if you want to use Jim Collins' good to great,
Yeah.
verbiage, great organizations know how to leverage the people to grow the business.
I love that.
But remarkable organizations leverage the business to grow the people who then grow the business.
Yeah. There we
You know,
go.
got a lot of friends who work at Chick-fil-A, and they're fond of saying this, that Chick-fil-A is a leadership development academy masquerading as a quick service restaurant.
Yeah.
And that's what every organization should be. It should be a leadership development academy masquerading as whatever you do. Because we should be investing in people, helping them grow personally, helping them grow their careers, helping them get excited and passionate about the work that they do, encouraging them to make a difference in the world. That's what business should be all about. Because again, people like to do good business with businesses that do good. And so I think the most powerful and impactful thing that any group can do, no matter what size they are, is have this strategy for investing in their people and then challenging their people to invest in doing good in the community. Because if we do that, then we are fulfilling the purpose of business, which is to improve the human condition.
I love that. That's fantastic. What a great piece of advice, and I hope that everybody will listen to that, take that hard, go back and re-listen to it, because it is. I believe that business can change the world, and you see it over and over and over again in communities. Businesses can change the world, and it's so cool to be able to be a part of. So, Randy, talk us back to 2007, 2008. Obviously, you have an economic crash, but you have the book come out. It gets all the awards, it just explodes. And you get into this new role. You're a speaker and an author. Talk us through the first 12 to 24 months of that. I'd love to hear founders talk through the first year or two of their startup, which for you is kind of a startup in this scenario. Um, to give advice for solopreneurs or entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who are maybe in that stage. What do you remember of that time? What were some lessons that you learned during that time?
Well, I have serious mental repression of those early days. My first,
I think
my
all of us
first
do.
advice to every entrepreneur is don't start your business in the midst of an economic downturn. We were in the middle of a massive recession. We launched in January of 2008. We had no idea, how long that trough was going to be, and it was
Sure,
a very difficult time to start up. And to the point that I was making earlier, one of the first things that most organizations did was slash their training budgets
sure.
back during the economic downturn. So the first few years were very, very challenging for us. But we endured. We made it past that 3 year mark where, most organizations fail in the first 3 years. So we made it past that mark. We were able to subsist. We did a lot of coaching on the executive level. We were able
Okay,
to do training. We were able to keep the wheels, as it were, on the cart and keep moving forward. And it was during that time that we really codified our message of remarkable. And so it took a few years for us to hammer that out and get that right and
okay,
finally get that out to the market. Started writing the book in 2012, published it in 2014, and it was a great success and was very helpful to a lot of organizations, which we were tremendously excited about and humbled by. And it's continued to be a stalwart for us. The message of remarkable has resonated with a lot of leaders and organizations across the board. Um, that was a challenging time. But then there are also other challenging times in 2020 as a speaker,
sure.
as he travels the country and provides, developmental workshops for teams. Everything was shut down. So we had to pivot in 2020 and take a necessary but costly step in investing and putting all of our content on a digital platform.
Okay,
Now, in addition to just the books and the workbooks and the live presentations, now we can offer to entities of all size our digital platform. So all of our content from Remarkable, our content from Relationomics, our content from Fireproof Happiness are all on a digital platform where organizations can gain access to that. And if it's a small team of 10 or 50, all the way up to an enterprise agreement with thousands, we can accommodate that
I
and
love that.
provide quality content for growth and development. So, the entrepreneurial journey is a fun one, but not without, it's a fraught with all kinds of setbacks and challenges and twists and turns.
Sure.
The main thing that entrepreneurs have to continually stay focused on is what's your mission? And by that, Matthew, I don't mean just your mission as an organization, but what's your personal mission? Every organization worth its salt has a mission statement. They have a purpose for their existence.
Yeah.
Well, the same is true for us as individuals. And when I ask leaders across the country, what's your personal purpose statement? Or what's your, we call it a leadership legacy statement? I'm surprised by how few people have ever hammered that out. But I will tell you that my personal purpose statement is what kept me focused and on track during those difficult times because I knew that if I stayed true to who I was and what I was called to do, that eventually it would be prosperous. Eventually, it would work out.
I love that.
But I had to be consistent with that and not compromise that. And so I would challenge every entrepreneur. And we got some, if you want to go to our website, we got some free workshops to help you craft
Okay.
your personal purpose statement. On the resource tab of our website, people can gain access to that. But I would challenge everybody to craft their own personal leadership legacy statement or life purpose statement.
I love that. So Randy, what's yours?
My personal one is by my words and by my deeds, I choose to inspire people to be remarkable.
I love that.
Now, it's short, it's succinct. It may not mean anything to anybody else, but for me, remarkable is powerful because it's the name
Yeah.
of our but also the name of our first book. It means that you deliver a service or a product, and you do so in such a way that you impact people's lives for good to such a degree that when they leave your presence, they have this irrepressible desire to talk about you. That's
Yeah.
what remarkable means. Now, I want to inspire people. People come up all the time and say, "Are you a motivational speaker?" To which I say, "No, I'm not." Uh, that connotes a whole different category of communication. For me, I want to be known as an inspirational speaker that helps people apply impactful principles to life.
Love that.
And so, by my words and my deeds, I consider myself to be a writer, a communicator. And so, by my words, but it's not enough to just do it in verbiage alone. You have to do it in action. So, by my words and my deeds, I want to inspire people to be remarkable. Now, that can take on a wide array of, pathways to
Sure.
actualize that.
Sure.
But that's my main focus. That's what I want to do. That's what wakes me up in the morning, gets me excited. That's what keeps me, focused when I'm tired and weary, when I'm on the road and forget where I'm what city I'm waking up.
Oh, I
Um,
love that. It,
but
it, it gives you a goal line. It gives you something to be pursuing. We say this a lot. I've said it for a long time. Focus dictates direction, right? It's the focus. It's the thing that you're determined. This is the direction that you're going, and it gives you that energy. It gives you that. My wife and I recently watched the new Gladiator movie, and it reminded me of Strength and Honor. And we've been saying that we have young boys at home, and they are in a season of difficulty, and it's just but we jokingly tell each other strength and honor before she leaves, and it's just this idea of let's stay focused. Let's playfully get back to this life as parents, right? We're focused on leading our for us personally, leading our boys to Jesus Christ. That is our goal, and so in the midst of the fun, in the midst of the hard, let's stay focused on that. So I love that you're sharing that. So Randy, I love the pivot. You kind of you didn't bury that, but you shared that briefly. Pivots are so powerful in a business that you're moving one direction and you pivot. Sometimes it's for health reasons. Sometimes it's for pandemic. And a lot of people pivoted in 2020. Some of them got into business ownership because of 2020. But I love what you're doing and the access to content, right? This is kind of more of an evergreen opportunity for you to capitalize on the value of the content that you've created, not just in an in-person speaking arrangement, but now you open that up to a huge audience, right? What an amazing opportunity for you and for Remarkable. But now you give access to everybody else. So if somebody's listening to this, they've read the book, they've read your books, they want access to that. How do they get in touch with that specific piece?
well, so let me just kind of share with you a quick thought from a book, Fireproof Happiness, because you're talking
Okay.
about. I think this is critically important. The book Fireproof Happiness is it's nonfiction, and it's unpacking how do you build resilience into the workforce. In other words, what's the connection between hope, happiness, health, productivity, and longevity? So this whole idea of hope, what is hope, and how does it play out in business? And it's a great read. I had so much fun putting it together. But in there, I talk about the beliefs behind hope.
Okay.
And here they are. There are four. First one is positivity. I believe that things can be brighter tomorrow, now, no matter how dark today may be. And positivity is not the end all be all, but it's where you have to start. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff out in the market on school of positive psychology, Martin Seligman and others, and how important positivity is. But positivity will not get you through the roughest and darkest days. So it starts there. But the second piece is responsibility. I'm not a victim of circumstance. I have a say in how my life unfolds. So therefore, I can act responsibly to do what's necessary to make sure I'm prepared to face anything that may come my way.
Amen.
That's the second.
Amen.
The third piece is what we're talking about is agility. That's the ability to pivot. Agility means that there's not just one way to any desired destination. There are
Sure.
multiple pathways to get there.
Yeah.
Like if I want to drive to a location, there's not one road. There are multiple ways I can get there. And if one path is blocked, I can choose an alternative. Or if it's just not feasible to get there, I can re-go. But agility is critically important. And the fourth piece is assessing your reality.
Okay.
your reality. And that's not to mean that reality is subjective, because it's not. Truth is truth, but everybody has their own personal experience of that.
Okay.
You have to embrace the totality of your reality. You can't deny the challenges that are there. You can't bury your
Sure.
head and wait for the storm to pass. So here we go. Positivity, P, responsibility, R, agility, A, your
Yeah.
your personal um, reality. So PRAY, pray,
I love that.
is the foundation for hope.
Yeah.
It's connecting you with a higher purpose. It's helping you demonstrate the flexibility to pursue God's calling in your life while maintaining a strong focus on the values that drive you. So that's the foundation. So having said that, you know, all of our content is about unpacking these principles of axiology, which is very close to theology. But, you know, obviously when I float in corporate circles, um, I have to
Sure.
be very conscientious of the fact that I'm speaking to a diverse audience, and I want
Sure.
to I entice them. I don't, you know, alienate them. And so these principles you can gain access to through our writing. You can look a lot of it up online, but we write. I write in a way, hopefully, that will inspire people to be able to bring their best to work every day.
I love that. And so can they go, you said that if there's a team of 10, if there's a team of 50, if there's an enterprise level team that they can get paid access to, is it remarkable.com? Where do they go to get
Yeah.
access to that content?
So my website is drrandyross.com. DR, no period, just drrandyross.com. And there's a resource page. There's a page that talks about our services. Anybody who's interested can reach out, or you can gain more information there.
I love that. I just want to make sure we touched on that. So let me take a step back to the
Okay.
pray, and I love to pray personally. It is something that reorients me as a man of faith, but it's also as an individual, right? But I love the distinction of the four, that it gears you towards action, and there's so much about hope that is based in action instead of inaction. I'm not going to sit here and just hope that it gets better. I'm not going to sit here with paralysis by analysis. I'm not going to just sit here and hope somebody comes and does something for me. And no, it's going to move me to action. And I love that you have that distinction. So thank you for sharing that. Randy, a couple of things, and I know we're kind of getting a little bit close to the end of our time, and I don't want to miss these questions to be able to ask you. One that I'd love to ask people, all of us make mistakes. I've made many. Can you share with them a mistake you've made over the life of your business and something that you learned from it?
Um, we don't have time to go over all those. But,
Just
probably
one.
the greatest one, and we've laughed about it, is starting a business during a recession. But you know, that's not something that you can time or anticipate. And we didn't know exactly what was going to transpire in those days. But I think that a lot of times there are two things I would say, and going back to the book Fireproof Happiness, one is to set a direction and pursue that incessantly, even beyond the point that it's feasible.
Okay.
In other words, there are times in our lives as entrepreneurs we have to re-goal.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people hold on to a dream too long when all the prevailing winds say move in a different direction.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think that a lot of people quit too soon
Sure.
just because they don't see the results, and they haven't persevered in the process. And that's a very fine line. People ask all the time, how do you discern between the two? And
Sure.
I think that involves a multitude of wise counsel. You know, those that are closest to you. How long can your spouse endure it? How long will will your partners support you? What does the market continue to look like? And you have to be very discerning, because there are times you have to change direction, choose another path to fulfill that dream or objective. And there's sometimes it becomes so far removed that it's going to be a waste of your time, energy, and resources to continue to pursue something if there's no hope for that becoming a reality. And I think that's the most challenging part of an entrepreneurial endeavor, is to know when to let it go
Yeah.
and move in a different direction. and when to stay consistent and committed to that objective. But here's what I would say: it's not about your goals. It's not about what you want to achieve. It's more about who do you want to become.
Okay.
So it's more about your character development in the process. And I think that a lot of times our goals are void of being attached to character development, both for ourselves and the people around us. So the question is not what do you want to accomplish? That's a part of it, but that's not the end all be all. The question is not what do you want to accomplish, but who do you want to become in the process? Are
I
we
love that.
being, in terms of our character, the kinds of individuals that are necessary in order to accomplish that goal? There's several people. Andy Stanley's one who said this: you have to become the kind of person that the people you're looking for are looking for.
Yeah.
That's true in business, that's true in dating, but that's true pretty much everywhere. And I think sometimes we want to attract a certain clientele before we've become the kind of individual or organization that can serve those people well. And I think when you get your timing right, that you grow to become what your client needs and you can provide that, then that's a powerful thing.
Yeah, that's I love that, and I love the idea of refining ourselves and becoming better. Peter Drucker, bottlenecks are always at the top, right? That this idea of as a leader, the rate limiting step of growth in my organization is me, and it's
Right.
this idea of growing myself, becoming who I want to be, the leader I want to become, the husband I want to become, the dad that I want to become, that it's that journey that my sanctification, if you want to throw a church word in there, this idea of growing and developing. I love that. So Randy, talk to me about how you have leveraged for yourself mentorship, right? We hear that a lot. You talked about that. There's safety in the wisdom of counsel. Talk to me about how you yourself have leveraged mentorship in the life of your business.
Well, for me personally, I have always tried to look for people who are further down the road than I am and seek their advice and seek their counsel. So I'm constantly looking for, seeking, asking individuals that I admire, respect to speak truth into my world. And so had the privilege of having Ken Blanchard
Wow.
forward to Relationomics, had the opportunity to spend time with Horst Schulze, who had the opportunity to spend time with a lot of great leaders. And I think that everybody needs that in your life. You need to have people that you're asking to pour into your life. And it doesn't have to be a long-term relationship. It could be, hey, would you give me an hour of your time once a quarter
Sure.
for the next year? Just 4 meetings. And I'll pay for your lunch. I'll pay for your dinner. I promise I'll come loaded with questions. I want to maximize our time. I just want to learn. I want to sit at your feet and learn. There are people you need to be asking for the privilege of being able to do that. But at the same time, you also need to be pouring into other people. And you need to be looking for individuals that you can coach and you can encourage. And it may be in a formal mentorship, or it could just be notes of encouragement or young entrepreneurs that you see occasionally that you just want to encourage in their journey. And so I think that's just a part of what it means to be connected in community and contribute to giving back and helping other people grow. Um, it's vitally important.
Yeah. I love that, and it's so cool to see. He who walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools suffers harm. So that many times on this podcast, Proverbs 13:20. But it is so true that who we surround ourselves with, this idea of getting with people. I love the practicality of that. Buy somebody lunch, buy somebody dinner once a quarter. Don't make it indefinite. Give them a time frame. Know what they're committing to. That's a fantastic practical advice. Okay,
Well, if I could add one thing to that, Matthew,
yeah,
too,
please.
a buddy of mine by the name of Bob Littell does a lot of talking. He wrote a book called Netweaving.
Okay,
I think a big downfall of a lot of entrepreneurs is they network in networking activities to build relationships with people from whom you think you can receive benefit through promoting your agenda. And I would encourage entrepreneurs to think that through again, because I can't tell you the number of networking events I've been to where somebody come up and start telling me their story and try to seek to find out how I can help them. And it's a put off.
yeah,
But net weaving is this idea that wherever I go into a social setting, I am specifically looking for other people where I can ask, um, what is your dream? What is your vision? How can I connect you? Most people are only two introductions away from being successful.
I love that.
And I want to go into every single meeting, not with this idea of who can I meet, who can promote my agenda. I want to go into that meeting with the idea of who can I meet that I can hear their story completely and connect them with people in my world who have a similar vision, a similar hope, a similar drive, a similar purpose to advance their cause.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to see what God does in a situation like that, because when we go with this mindset of, I want to create value for other people, I want to help connect them to others who will make them successful, it's amazing how that comes full circle and can serve you. And you don't do it with a purpose of reciprocity, but when you do it with an open, sincere mindset to help other people connect with people who can help them, it's just amazing how it comes back to you in spades. So it's just something I'd like for people to think about, because I get tired of the networking events where you
Yeah.
pass out and nothing ever happens as a result of it. And I just want to be a part of creating good for other people.
I love that. And what a fantastic distinction, right? This idea that I'm just going to get instead of I'm going to give. And I'm going to try to connect, and I'm going to try to help other people get what they're wanting. And the way it comes back to you is pretty amazing. So, Randy, as a dad, as a husband, we have a lot of entrepreneurs that would fall into that category that are listening to this. What advice would you have navigating the pull between work and life demands? I believe balance is a myth, right? But it's this idea of, how do I navigate as someone who has multiple responsibilities, the pull between my business and my home? What advice would you have?
Um, Live life to the fullest. And by that, people talk about work life balance. I don't think that's a good thing to try to strive for, because life is not about balance.
Yeah,
Life is about managing imbalance. I mean, if you think about it, someone once shared this analogy with me. It's like walking. When you walk, you're not in a state of balance. You're constantly imbalanced. Your weight is either on your right foot or your left foot or somewhere in between.
sure.
You're not balanced. You create a sense of um, stability in the midst of imbalance by moving from one foot to the other. And so my wife and I, we both work very, very, very hard. And we both allow each other to work very hard, but we also play very hard.
Cool.
So we constantly look for alignment. Um, there are times you have to establish just clear priorities. I'm going to be at my son's game this afternoon, right?
Sure.
And everything else takes a back seat to that. And I think that's critically important, but that's an imbalance. I've shut my phone off. I'm not available for the next 2 hours. I'm taking my son to his football game. I'm going to watch the game and I don't want to be disturbed.
Yeah.
An imbalance toward family life. There are other times that I have an imbalance toward work. I'm out of town. I'm on the road. I'm speaking to 3 groups this week. I'm not available for the next 4 days and I won't be back home. But my wife and I have been able to creatively, and I think that's the word, creatively find ways to enrich our lives so that when I'm on the road and I'm going to some great exotic location to speak to a group, I'll fly her out to join me and we'll have an
Cool.
extended weekend.
Yeah, cool.
Our entire lives, we have worked to maintain deep connectivity in the midst of imbalance. And I think that's what entrepreneurs need to strive to create. You have to know what your family needs and what the business needs, and you've got to be able to navigate that. And that means constantly being out of balance.
Yeah. I love
You have
that.
to grow to become comfortable and creative in being out of balance and be okay with that.
I love that.
I'm wholeheartedly, baby, I'm on the road for the next 2 weeks solid. We're not going to see each other a whole lot. But at the end of that, I'm meeting you in Key West and we're going to have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Or again, when the kids were younger, hey, I'm off the road. This is a tournament. I'm going to be there for my son's tournament. And no matter what invitation comes, it's going to be tournament time.
Yeah.
It's the kind of commitments and decisions you have to make, but you've got to be creative to keep it stable in imbalance.
Okay. That's, I love that analogy, right, of walking in the imbalance, and we're all in imbalance, ambiguity, right? It is navigating that is so hard. But I love the idea of the creativity, the way that you're finding time for your kids, you're finding time for your wife, and you're setting up those guardrails to say, I am available, I am not available, and making that decision instead of allowing every opportunity to come up is not always the right opportunity for you. So I appreciate you
There's
sharing
been a
that.
lot of times I've turned down, very high paying speaking engagements because those dates are not available because I'm out.
Yeah.
And that's what you just have to do.
Yeah, I love that. So Randy, as we're kind of coming to the end of our time, thank you again for sharing. Thank you for your generosity and sharing with us. Thank you for sharing your books. They're incredible resources. I hope everybody, if they haven't read them, will pick them up. If you could get a book, and it can definitely be one of yours, I highly recommend all of them. But if you want to highlight one of them, I would love to have you do that. But if you could get a book in the hand of every business owner, every entrepreneur, what would that book be?
Well, that's a setup question, Matthew. Um, First, one of the all-time classics is a book by Viktor Frankl, an Austrian neuroscience scientist, called Man's Search for Meaning.
Okay.
And the reason I like that book is because it's about how do you endure tough times. And if anybody on the planet needs to know how to endure tough times, it's entrepreneurs or solopreneurs. But also, my book, Fireproof Happiness, was kind of written along that same ilk. And I quote Viktor Frankl heavily in the book. But it's about how do you face and embrace challenging times? Because it's so easy to get discouraged or get distracted, when times are tough and being pulled away from significant work. And I think to be able to um, leverage hope, understand hope, apply hope is immensely impactful for entrepreneurs. So those things, and if I could ever help any of your listening audience, I speak to a lot of multinational companies, but I do work with mom and pop shops as well.
Love that.
Looking for a speaker for an event that's coming up, or they want to do some leadership training with their team or executive coaching. That we play in all of those realms, and would be happy to discuss, how we could unpack some of these principles to have a powerful impact on their business. So, feel free to reach out to me if we can help.
Definitely. So the last two things I love to end on. We like to focus on commitments, right? They feel stronger than just a goal. That is, I'm committed to doing this within my organization. So, Randy, what's a commitment that you have in this year of 2025 within your organization?
Well, I'm going to take it back to, and I love what you're saying. I'm going to take it back to character
Okay.
rather than commitment. What character are you committed to developing? What character trait are you committed to developing within the context of providing your business? And
Love
for
that.
us this year, for me specifically, I like to choose a single word every year to focus on. And my
Okay.
word 2025 is gratitude.
Okay.
Gratitude. And we know from research that gratitude um, does so much healthy stuff for the human spirit, but also does so much for business. And being able to express appreciation, thankfulness, praise, and acknowledgement, just affirming the people around you, whether that's my wife or my children or my colleagues or my clients. This year, I want to drive our business with gratitude.
Okay. So how are you doing that? Give me a practical piece. Is that a weekly reminder to send a note to someone? Is that a daily reminder? Is that a morning prayer time? What does that look like for you?
Yes, 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 and yes. Uh, it's expressing gratitude verbally to those that are around me every day, including my wife and my colleagues, genuinely, sincerely, not fluff, because people know when you're disingenuous, but
Sure.
genuinely expressing appreciation, writing hand notes of affirmation and appreciation when I see people doing things that are worthwhile and noteworthy. I want them to know that I thought about that. Expressing gratitude to those who've taken time to mentor me and invest in my life, expressing appreciation to our client base and making sure that they know how grateful we are to be in partnership together with them. And I think that's one thing that we don't do enough of. And I'm not talking about a general email thanks in our newsletter. I'm talking about client centered, very personal expressions of appreciation, because the more personal you can make it, the more impactful it will be.
I love that. I love that. That's what a fantastic piece of advice. Okay, let's end on this, Randy. Again, I appreciate your time. Um, if you could go back 10 years ago, let's actually make it 11 so we could go right at the beginning of the rocket ship that was remarkable. What's a piece of advice that you would give to younger Randy?
Hmm. stay true to your values, stay on course with your mission, face and embrace challenging times effectively, and express gratitude. I think those components. I think sometimes we always get in the early stages of the business, we always long for or wish we had something we don't have, rather than expressing appreciation for what we do have.
Yeah.
I think it's this whole idea of there are people around you right now that have helped you grow and build the business. There are clients that you have right now that are faithful supporters because they believe in what you're doing. Leverage that. I think we in the early days had too much of a scattered marketing approach.
Okay.
But for us, 95% of our business comes through word of mouth referrals.
Yeah.
And so the more we appreciate and affirm the people we are doing business with in a genuine way, the more likely they are to refer us to others.
I love that.
And I think that for us, that's just the flywheel. They hire us to do something. We do a great job. We express tremendous appreciation for having had that opportunity. And we ask them in return just to keep us in mind or consider, introducing us to their friends. And it becomes this virtuous cycle of good. And so I think rather than chasing 1,000 ways to build or, the business, if we, and this is just specifically for us because ours is not a physical product that we distribute, although we have books, it's more of a personal impact.
Yeah.
And that it has to usually come through the recommendation of someone who's experienced what you have to offer.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say to myself is just focus on those things, stay true to your values, stay on point with your mission, express gratitude frequently.
I love that. Yeah, it reminds me of the last point you made there. In Iron Forums, it's an organization that you're aware of here in the Atlanta area. They're actually nationwide now of Christian business owners that meet once a month as a mastermind group, and they have what's called the Andrew Principle. And it's this idea of this has changed my life. Come and see. That's how you bring people. Come and see what has happened. And I love that you're bringing that distinction out in the referral game. And, people try to gamify referrals. If we're doing a good job, if we're adding value, back to our original point of remarkable, right? If we're adding value to our customers and to our coworkers, our employees, this idea of people want to do business with businesses that are doing good. I love that. So Randy, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Just as a reminder for everybody who's listening, drrandyross.com is how you can get in touch with him, get his books, get access to the course content. Randy, thank you for sharing. Everybody, thank you for joining along with us here on Market Mavericks. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Market Mavericks. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to take your own adventure to the next level. Don't forget to follow the show to keep up with our latest episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, share it with others who could benefit. And hey, if you know a market maverick who has a story that needs to be heard, please drop their name in the comments. We would love to bring their insights to the show. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and leading with purpose.